This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
We take a closer look at how Kenya's political landscape has evolved over the past 2 decades, So beginning with the historic 2002 transition that ended the rule of KANU and ushered in a new era under Mwai Kibaki. Now, back in 2002, Kenyans voted overwhelmingly to change the situation that was in the country, which we only knew the single party, which was KANU. But even after that, a different dramatic change for the country. Mwai Kibaki gets in, the government continues to move. 2007 happens. Kenya again finds itself in a very difficult situation. Kenyans are killed because of politics. 3 years later, Constitution 2010, that comes into place to change a lot of things that Kenyans said we must change moving forward. We must have independent institutions as we move forward. So we have the independent IG, ODPP. You have E8. Everybody is in finally, and Kenyans are saying, hey, voila, things. Kenya finally has the most progressive constitution. However, as we look at the situation today, are Kenyans back to the oppressive days? Nothing has changed, because one would ask, after all these years, there is little to show. Would you reckon? What is the trajectory of our politics, trajectory that the country has taken over the years?
Thank you very much. And once more, I appreciate the opportunity to be in this situation room. When we got the new constitution, it was proclaimed to be a new dawn.
Yes.
A new beginning, and a dispensation that was breaking away from the past. And truly, as you have stated, then the constitution provided a new system, and that system was to be enabled by institutions. Independent parliament, independent judiciary, responsible executive, fully guided by specific laws, articles in the constitution, so that nobody is without the system of constitutionalism. But as we can all see now, things have turned opposite. Because the institutions that are obligated to implement the rule of law and constitutionalism have been hijacked. Okay? If you look at the inaugural institutions, like the Truth and Justice and the Constitutional Commission, the Constitutional Oversight Commission, then, for transition, even the Agency for Transition to Devolution, the Transition Authority, the leadership of those agencies was very competitive.
Yes.
And you could say holders of those offices having a track record that was now being expected to deliver the new chapter. But today, composition and leadership of independent constitutional commissions and the governance agencies is wholly politically patronized. So is dumping. We go fairly in our political careers or brokers within the political campaigns. The reward is now in those institutions. You saw last week an appointment of a panel to constitute certain vacancies that are falling for occupation. It is predictable to see the line of kinship, tribalism, and brokerage in all those institutions. So that's where we are falling short. So the new dawn, the spirit of constitutionalism, the rule of law, the hope for a new order, breaking away from the old order to a new order, is problematic. For instance, look at Parliament. You've seen clearly there's a shift to youth wingism The leadership of the National Assembly, more particularly, is in question. It has fallen short. It is worse than even in the one-party days. Even in those early days of one-party system, of the tyranny of the ruling party, then KANU, we still had the independence of members. Remember the 7 bearded sisters, the Wasike Dobis, the Wamweres, the Orengos of those days, the Sumas, the Abuyas, the Lawrence Sifuna of those days. They still survived, despite the oppression of them.
Yeah.
But today, a member of parliament raises a question on the floor of the House and questions the independence of parliament. Is treated like those days of Martin Shikuku and the then Deputy Speaker, Jean Marie Sorone, who had questioned the suppression of parliament and alarmed the country that there was possibility that parliament would be as dead as the ruling party then was, because there are no elections, the ruling party can then and all that. You see, members are being thrown out of parliament for even questioning a standing order.
Yeah.
And there is supposed to be hallowed grounds of parliament. You are not supposed to be arrested within parliament. You have impunity. That's to cushion against suppression of independent and rational voice. Where we are today, the Speaker of the National Assembly, both in private and in public meetings, speaks as a youthing of the President Ruto.
Yeah.
Wetangula is the greatest disaster that this country has experienced.
Yeah.
He's a court poet.
We look at all these independent institutions, and one would just want to focus especially on Parliament, a body that has absolute powers. But why do I say that? Because it is 290 members of Parliament who have been donated all these powers by the citizens of the Republic to run the affairs of the country. I say Parliament is the biggest letdown there is, because they have ceded their power. They have not been hijacked. They have not been captured. They have ceded their power. Because when you talk about State House or the office of the President, it is the National Assembly that would seat, Parliament that would seat, and even decide the kind of budgets that would go into those offices.
True.
They have the powers to say, I'm sorry, Mr. President, you need to explain to us how you spent this money to demand even more. They have the powers to even say no.
They do.
Instead of giving you extra money, we will channel this to go into education and into healthcare or into development in a certain area. But they choose not to do that. Is Parliament, therefore, the greatest letdown this country has ever seen?
Indeed, that is a situation, and that's a fact, that's a reality. Because members of legislatures, be they county assemblies, the National Assembly, or Senate, are constitutionally protected in their work. This constitution even protects them more because it also not only facilitates them logistically, unlike the days gone, it provides strong space where through committees of parliament you can check the executive, you can query other bodies, including the judiciary, on performance of their duty, periodic. So the report card for governance in Kenya is given to Parliament. Even the President is obligated every year to speak, to give a state of the nation. Specifically providing explanations on what has been done with the resources provided, and not just financial, the resources in terms of even the authority to govern. You are accountable, you are answerable. It is a duty that's supposed to be. But now, just like it's happening in every arena, Parliament has become a surrogate. Okay? And now is you don't know whether it is a majority side or a minority side that's supposed to independently checkmate the executive. So yes, easily agreeable. Parliament, we had the opportunity to serve in the past, is the greatest letdown. Because if today Parliament rose, then it would be questioning not only the head of state and the head of government, but those delegated as cabinet secretaries to perform duties assigned to them by the Constitution. So if Parliament was awake, we would not be facing this problem. But if the Parliament has been converted to quote poetry and the platitudes and the just clapping, and the greatest problem, not only with the Parliament but with us as a country, is gluttony. Because if it is not, members of Parliament have admitted, and publicly so, that they get bribed, even in the toilet or Parliament. You see, we see people, money bags provided to members of Parliament who hold critical positions in order to do the bidding of the president or the occupant of State House in their backyards and across the country. So, Parliament is actually a shame.
Mheshimiwa, if you look at the context that we are operating in, the then and now, of course, we take a lot of credit to the Constitution of Kenya 2010 to be able to clarify how issues are supposed to be done in Kenya, where, for example, that cabinet secretaries are supposed to be vetted. The president, no longer just picks somebody from the pool of ministers then, and that now you have to declare a running mate that becomes your deputy president. And that initially, of course, we had ministers who were elected members of Parliament, and you served as an assistant minister at some point, right? As an MP as well.
Yes,
correct?
In the old constitution.
Yeah, in the then constitution of Kenya. But today you look at the strength that the constitution was expected to therefore exert, and the backbone of it was transparency, accountability, and of course service delivery. That also introduced the devolved governments.
Yes.
Now, citizens expect that now we should have much more accountable governments. Institutions are supposed to be much more responsive, and that even political parties are supposed to be speaking for citizens. And the question that I have for you is, in your view, looking at the context that I am trying to create or to paint, is Kenya moving towards a more stable democracy, or are we just getting into more deeper political fragmentation?
Because you have a good constitution and it's progressive, then you can say we have some grace. So our problem is the occupation.
Yes.
The occupant of office. Acted and practiced differently, Kenya will be as beautiful as originally anticipated or expected when we framed the new dispensation in this constitution. So we need to look at the workplace. A company can be very beautiful, but it can collapse tomorrow because of bad occupation. Here, we have someone who promised to take from the so-called dynasties, the rich, to give to the poor. But instead, turned up to rob from the hustlers to enrich the wealthy lenders. When you look in town, you can see the ballooning of certain financial institutions because all the money from housing levy to share and all that is being shared to one kitty. And that kitty is owned by the one who was supposed to be the chief hustler. All right? So when you look yesterday, there was a meeting of the Corinos. You can debate everything, the right to go and all that. But here you have a president who was saying, this is not your food. It's not you who have cooked. It is indeed our food. the money you give. And then he was telling them, I'm going to even to add you, to give you something, more, in addition to what had been provided. So it is a tragedy. You came to power, you traded hope. But instead, you have become a merchant of hopelessness, a merchant of tragedy. You promised to take the hustlers up, bottom up, use them as a lander. But once you got up, you kick them off, and now you are throwing taxes down to them. Okay? So then every day you are claiming your biggest project is the housing fund. But concrete, with occupants without a meal and without hope, is really a shift from what you provided. So we cannot accuse this government of not trying. We cannot accuse President Ruto of not trying to change Kenya. Actually, he has achieved exactly opposite. He is working extremely hard to achieve exactly opposite of what he promised the hustlers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay? When you are answering to every question or every issue that is raised, that personalizing issues because you are intolerant, and saying, this is your state house, you can come, you can eat food today, hata ningemchijia, and those people who are complaining there are bitter, they have no right. Really, you are talking about a state house.
Yeah.
The Istana of Lee Kuan Yew, as you talk about Singapore. Lee Kuan Yew, as I have said in this station before, kept his family, his sons, his daughter, his wife, away from Istana, from the State House of Singapore, and grew his children in his private home because he didn't want to conflict between state and the family.
Yeah.
Okay? Kenya is not a theocracy, such that, you use your religious dogmas and denominations and all that to proclaim national issues. The constitution is very clear. Kenya is very impartial constitutionally. Everybody has a right of belief. We believe in Almighty God. That is true in the preamble, and we say that. But you cannot convert a national institution to perpetrate your religious beliefs or affiliations. And exactly what we should also say is that even we who are clapping for Ruto every day, saying that this is money that we should eat, whose money? Those 100 million that is being spent in a day, the 300 million is being sent every day. The money that Kidiki is using, 8 million every day, whose money? It is taxpayers' money. So instead of creating a hassle for the people who you hypothesized and created fanaticism around in order to install you in power, you are robbing them of the hassle they have. So joblessness, unemployment, depression, auctions of properties is the cornerstone of the deception or the deceptive politics and the campaign that happened. So you campaigned as you campaigned on a platform of hope, but you are governing as a taxman.
What would you do if you were in Parliament today, in the National Assembly? Because you've served there before, and you have tried to indicate some of the challenges that institution has today. But in the event that the people of Mukurweini gave you an opportunity today to be in Bunge, what difference would you generate?
Well, it's unlikely, on a light note, it's unlikely that Mukurweini will give me an opportunity again because I will not seek it. But I can seek, and I will seek the seat of Senator for Nyeri. But so if I'm in the Senate, in the legislature, I will do what we did before. You know, you mentioned about being in the executive at the parliament then.
Yes.
Yeah.
Alongside my friends, Dr. Kelemi Mweria and the Honorable Derito Moreithi.
Yeah.
Moreithi was in industrialization. Kelemi was record as the minister for the entire Kibaki and myself. We authored petitions to government. Okay? And we also authored criticism to government. If you remember, Kelemi had a column.
Yes.
Every Sunday.
Yes.
If you remember, I was almost every weekend writing in one of the dailies and questioning issues even within our ministry.
Yes.
Even on the floor of the House. We broke mold by disagreeing with our boss, the president, Mwai Kibaki then, and our minister, who was delegated in the docket on issues to do with Youth Enterprise Fund and also renaming of Nyao Stadium in order to incorporate independence, even lab set program. We questioned. If you remember 2015, we rose a number of parliamentarians to question on the scandal at National Youth Service. I read that press conference. So if I'm in the parliament again, and I hope and I'm praying every day that Nyeri people accord me opportunity to serve them as their senator, I would be mobilizing my colleagues across the aisle in order to bid for bipartisan issues through bipartisan caucus. If you remember very well, we had a bipartisan caucus, which I was very fortunate to initiate and co-chair in order to bring CORD and Jubilee Coalition together, leading to the select committee co-chaired by Kreito Adorengo to address issues of electoral reforms and IBC. And we managed to stop the demonstrations and we managed to create a scenario where both parties agreed on minimum reforms within the IBC. So mobilizing colleagues, members of parliament, sponsoring bills. You remember in 2014, the watchdog on parliamentary issues, it's called muzaredo.org. They recognized an effort on the bill, which was eventually never implemented, on Emma Kiba, which had put in Parliament, an amendment of Section 45 of the Central Bank of Kenya in order to create a digital platform and lower the denominated amount to bid for government securities in order to incorporate a bigger number, bring younger people to bid for government, create some patriotism that they own government by buying government boats, but with an amount of about 3,000 and thereabout. So initiate legislative agenda, caucus, hold press conferences, hold rallies, and write articles in order to petition, just like the other people do as non-parliamentarians. They bring petitions to Parliament. And then we would also order petitions, give to people, then start at the gate to receive those petitions as coming from the people, because it's part of organizing and the planning. And more important, be incorruptible. The moment...
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Our bodies get serums and washes, but underarms only get deodorant? That's why our new breakthrough formula has pure hyaluron and vitamin C to deeply care for your underarms for soft and even skin tone in 2 weeks. With 72-hour sweat and odor protection, try the new Nivea Derma Control range, because your underarms deserve more. Nivea is for skin.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Engagement of financial transactions that are questionable. Most of politicians don't speak. In fact, we have had scenarios where even colleagues would ask you, why are you asking this? We put one of the questions that has never been answered in Parliament, I mentioned here 2 years ago, is the question we put on tax transfers. The multinationals negotiate with the Treasury and the other docket in order for them to be given tax evasions. The other question that was, there were two questions. The Carroll report The one that was investigated by John Gedongo when he was a PS for governance and ethics.
Yes.
I put that question. And for 2.5 years, Treasury and Attorney General's office declined to come to appear before the committee in Parliament to answer my question. And unfortunately, even Parliament was complicit in that matter.
I like how you were able to draw.
But then we publish the matters.
Yes.
You can find them on YouTube even today.
Yeah, because that really strengthens the space of governance and accountability within the institution of Parliament. And you have also indicated why it is a challenge to some of our current parliamentarians.
Yes.
But I'm just wondering, because as you talk about a bipartisan engagement
Yes.
that you worked on 2015 all the way to around 2018 ETC.
2016.
Yes, 2016.
Yeah.
As we speak now, because that was then, but
Yes,
this is now. We also have a similar arrangement called the broad-based government.
Yeah.
How different is that, and what are some of the things that you see that could be able to strengthen this bipartisan engagement that exists today to make those institutions stronger?
Let me be specific to the bipartisan caucus. We met independently.
Okay.
We met in Parliament. We caucus ourselves. We called for a meeting. It happened on a Monday.
Yes.
And about 45 of us assembled in my room of Lillian Towers, Nairobi Safari Club.
Yes.
From both sides, we had not consulted our party leaders.
Party leaders, yes.
My party leader was Uhuru Kenyatta. I did not consult him. The other people did not consult Raila Odinga. On that Monday, when we met, there was breaking news. And I think even this media house carried it in a very prominent way, that there's a ray of hope after opposing camps have come together.
Yes.
If you remember the dark Mondays, the demonstrations, the so-called business community from River Road, which was really an outfit of illegality being used by my side of the coalition. That time, we defied. After that meeting, it is when delegation from Azimio went to brief Raila Odinga at Capitol Hill.
Yes.
Raila went there, and his deputy Kalonzo Musyoka, and then the Senator Wetangula also in that meeting. And the following day, I also now led my delegation, joined with this other team. We went jointly. Raila called Kalonzo, called Wetangula. We briefed them. I called Uhuru Kenyatta, and I've written about this. I called him, and he was not in a very sufficient agreement, because he was saying these people are looking for nusu mukate or something like that. But eventually, we stayed stiff. I remember the insults from Duale specifically. He sent me text messages. He called me complaining. Then when we went to Parliament in the afternoon after that meeting, he accosted me, but we defied. We know he had the public mood. And the most unsettling thing was, now it is the side of Jubilee coalition. We are now being called rebels. We went to see Deputy President then, William Ruto. He kept us waiting for like 2 hours, although I had sought the appointment. And when he came, first of all, he blasted us and even asking us. And this matter, I've said it here, saying, you people, you think you know more than I do, and all that. He really belittled us. But we stood there, we sat there, he talked. Then I briefed him what you have done. Within a week, there was a parliamentary meeting at the State House. Many things happened there. I will not talk about them. They were ugly. They were bad. But the difference between that time and what is that? This is corruption. Broad-based is corruption. Even the ODM meeting that was called recently is Ruto who funded. Who doesn't know? Even the officials, including those officials, national chair, the so-called minority leader, who is supposed actually to be majority because the court ruled about it. We remember that evening in another station, that guy Junet was supposed to appear in a popular media program, but he said, we have been summoned to State House. They skived the media. So what is happening now is chicanery, is political, it's corruption.
I mean,
it's corruption.
Kabando, you paint a picture of a time when the political class or members of parliament at the time would be able to sit down reach out to the members of the opposing aisle to discuss on matters of national interest. It was not about we are here, you are there, and we will push an agenda, even if it was to the detriment of the Republic. We look at a situation today where members of parliament would do something because they've been given a directive from the highest office by their party leader. We look at a situation where it is no longer about what is good for Mwananchi, it is what is good for the president. One would want to say that, because you mentioned something here about mobilizing colleagues across the aisle.
Yes.
Is that happening today? It is not happening. It is not happening. You're talking about at the time when you were serving in government, the fact that you are able to call out the government that you're serving, for you to be able to petition the government that you're serving. If you compare then and now, what is the failure? Where did that tape get cut? That members of parliament are not able to stand firm and call out inefficiencies, inequalities that are happening or that are being pushed by the government of Kenya today. Is it because they are afraid? Is it because they don't care? Or like you said, is it because they are there for their own selfish gain?
It's a multiplicity of factors that have led to this. First is the party domination.
Yeah.
You go to the Orange Democratic Party, it was very tight.
Yeah.
And even now, it is tight in one function. On the other side, when Uhuru came to office, he came on in the shadow of many issues, including the ICC. Then there was a coalition. Ruto came with his wing, and so on and so forth. And then we had served with them in the parliament.
Parliament, yes.
So we didn't do blind loyalty. Because in a way, we were also like a generation, and others could have been senior. And we also coming from the Kibaki presidency. I come from Nyeri.
Yes.
Kibaki never a single day gave me 5 shillings, not even a coin, for the entire time. And he was the president. I am from Ukuroini. The first lady is from Ukuroini, Lucy. Rest in peace. So we were coming from a presidency that had for 10 years not dealt with the so-called state goodies.
Yes.
You didn't see Kibaki a single day in Harambee as a guest. Okay? So I'm not overpraising him, but there was there's a significant difference, not a little, before and after.
Yeah.
Only when Kibaki left office, the issues of now members of parliament being called, being caucused with the money, and people being put on chopper. You remember there was a Sky team.
Yeah.
In 2013.
Yes.
We went to a parliamentary meeting in the Great Lake Valley and mobilized ourselves, and we had the Kidikis and the Dollars vacate the high table. And we said, it was all headlines. I remember one Saturday, the Standard itself titled the issues of the Sky team. So the rain started beating us around that time. Okay? Then there's the unspoken truth. Ruto is very energetic. Ruto is very smart. But ultimately, his energy is in thefts, is in disorganizing, is in bribing. You can even talk about death. I know. He is also very eloquent. But his eloquence is of empty plates. Okay? He speaks to elderness. He has a odd class text and a powerful delivery, but in deception. And Ruto is a go-getter. Remember, I was here last year, and I told you that a certain Tuesday of May 2025, he had invited me to State House, specific time, and the gates were open. And in that morning is when I sent a message and I said, I can't make it. I'm sure, because I have my... Had I gone that particular morning, I would have been given an envelope of 10 million and above. All right? So,
You'd be a cabinet secretary.
For what? So the problem
Yeah.
is both with the takers
Yeah.
and also with the giver. You know, last year we said, of course, he's the greatest bribe giver. So that is a big problem. Haven't you heard that the man appearing on this newspaper, this man,
Yes, Jeanette.
he was closest to Raila Odinga.
Yes.
But he was dealing with Ruto even during the campaigns. Okay? In 2013, you heard that when Omar Hassan lost the seat of 2017 as a governor in Mombasa, the first person to call him was William Ruto. Okay? So Ruto is a vulture. And he is very swift and he's very merciless. So I'm not demonizing him because you cannot demonize a demon. All right? But that's a problem. And the moment people accept that as a fact, that Ruto will unashamedly go bribe a bishop with a Pajero today, and tomorrow go bribe somebody else. Isn't it this newspaper has that standard that has said last week how Ruto was talking about bandits in a certain part of this country. But his chopper was full of bags, sacks of cash that was stolen. Because even in his entourage, let me tell you, politicians should tell Kenyans this. Because I had the opportunity to fly with Ruto across the country when he was deputy president, on request from his office to accompany him. The people around Ruto, his security men, and the guys in his office are actually an extortionate ring. And therefore, whoever lives with him, whoever works with him, whoever is his ally, goes by his Bible. Extortion, bribery, and blackmail.
You know, Kabando, you've said that you would not be calling out President William Ruto today because your history, your background is clean. You did not participate in any corrupt cases. Here we talk about a parliament that has lost its independence because of in one way or the other, people are connected to illegalities in one way or the other. So therefore, the blind loyalty that we see today is because people know that for them to survive, for them to keep on doing what it is they are doing, it's because they have a tainted past. Therefore, we find ourselves as a country today unable to get good services. We are unable to get quality healthcare. We are unable to get development that we have, that we owed to ourselves, that we've given to ourselves through voting these individuals in parliament. But we are unable to get that because what we see in parliament is one big corrupt enterprise, and that powers that be, again, that have been put in place by this very same constitution. You talk about ODPP, you talk about EACC. All these bodies are silent to that matter because these individuals pay price to the higher office, higher being, higher power.
That is true. You have seen even in the judiciary, cases have been raised. And people have come out to say, I gave this. They have given videos, they have given text messages, and nothing is moving. The worry in Kenya should be the ring.
Yes.
It's very broad. But
how broad is it?
It's broad to the extent that the people who are being positioned, being placed. Let's start with the Ruto's wisest men, the so-called advisors. You have seen and heard what David Day has been saying. I'm mentioning him for the first time. I know him very well. I have sat with him even before elections. But to a certain point, I did not know that he was working with Ruto until I got him by chance in a meeting, in a private place. So he says they did not promise Kenya that they will fight corruption. And he talks down on young people when they are raising. At the same time, he's floating the academic ratios of his children in the high costs most premier institutions.
Institutions in the world, yeah.
When others are complaining about college fees.
Capitation.
You see, that is a man who is chairing the team that advises Ruto. I've seen even professors from Ivy League universities, the top universities, Harvard and the Oxfords, who are still in the same committee. And they have been professors in the universities. And their children have been asking them online, is this you, Mwalim? Money has the ability to suffocate, make you blind. And very few people with a chance would refuse a bribe or, provided with an opportunity to loot, fail to do so. So society and men and women are inherently weak and vulnerable to evil. Does that mean that there's no solution? That's why the Chinese say that the fish rots from the head. Yes. So if Mwai Kibaki offered us bribes in his government, most of us would have taken. And of course, if you remember in the first term, there was even a gloricing. Okay? And it implicated some of his ministers and his closest allies. Of course, they were terminated and a number of them went. But the story did not end. You remember Gidongo's,
yes.
It is our time to eat. I know people, my good friends from my own community, who have either text, called, or delegated, or directly blamed some of us when you have raised questions, because Kibaki was president, or because Uhuru was then, particularly in the Uhuru time, they would come and talk to us. And we lost friendships. I have personally, God is my witness, I have lost friends because they think when you criticize a government where your kinsman is at the helm,
yes,
you are betraying their cause. We have had offers. It's only that we don't talk about that because it will create distractions and there is no evidence to put on the table. That stop doing this, we'll give you this. If it is a question of SGR, if you handle this, even as a parliamentarian, and you become a surrogate, we'll do that. We have been called to meetings. Some of these people are now in IBC, who are being sent by the people who were in charge of youth affairs then, when they were looting NYS. And, let's do this. This person is taking this money to help our side because our side needs some money. So you want to sanitize and justify corruption because the person speaks your vernacular.
Yeah.
So the rot today is at the top. It is the wheelbarrow, the yellow wheelbarrow, cutting away the dreams and hopes of the hustlers. If State House has not been converted to a bribery palace by the occupant, those guests will not be trooping in. So the problem is at the top. As much as I would ask leaders, for instance, if today, looking at you in the eye and saying, if today I lifted this phone that I called William Ruto, or my friend and neighbor Doale, or arrogant Mokomen, and told them that I want to work with the government, I'll have my 20, 30, even 50 million on the table. So there must be restraint from the individual. Because at the end of the day, what you have procured through effort, through your creativity, you can float it around, and even your children will be very proud.
Proud, yes.
But if today my children know that I am in this situation, tomorrow they see me with the cash stocked in the house, 20 million, and then I'm buying them a car, a new car, and all that, and I cannot explain this. You lose the moral authority first to speak against evil or even to offer guidance. So when people are saying that Ruto is a problem, It is not ethnic hate. If we say that Ruto is a worst terrible, people are not speaking some facts that are so new and fresh. Wasn't there a barrio that was full of politics last week?
There was.
I want now to, I rarely mention any ethnic group because I think you can easily be misunderstood. Did you see a Kalejin MP in Ikerao's barrio, Olokarao? Not one. That was instruction from William Ruto. Because he was going to that barrio to do an ethnic battle. And he knew Rigathi Gachagua was going. So his was, and even this meeting he's holding in State House yesterday with the Corinos and others, specifically, is an onslaught. I want to ask you, in a parliament where Kerao had served for a record
15 years. 3 times, yeah.
Not 10 years. Actually 14 years.
14 years.
Yeah.
He came in 2013. I was with him for his first term. He did. There was not a single MP from Kalejin land who was his friend. They were instructed not to go to that barrio because they knew and they feared that Ruto would be embarrassed, and Ruto doesn't want to face that. So here's a problem. Look at the litany of appointments that he has been making. Look at the so-called arrest that he made on the energy sector chiefs the other day. We knew it was just a camouflage. Those are briefcase carriers. The owner of the kitty is William Ruto. He is the greatest tragedy and the greatest disaster and the greatest curse that Kenya has faced. When we say this, they say, oh, your entitlement. Because you come from Central, because you are a Kikuyu, you come from Mount Kenya. Really? People have their ethnic identities, which is a heritage to be proud of and celebrate. I'm at home. I get disappointed when my children don't answer me in Kikuyu because that's their mother tongue.
Yeah.
All right? Just like there's the motherland Kenya. Yeah? In this mother nature. So, when we are criticizing Ruto, we should not be misunderstood that we are doing so because he is a Kalejin. When we criticize Uhuru Kenyatta, we were not betraying our community.
Yes.
We even criticized Raila Odinga, but we ended up even supporting him, just like Ruto had been supported. So these are pertinent questions. Like now people have said that Senator Medo insulted Ruto. Where is the insult? He said, I respect you in this regard, in this context, and this context, but I don't fear you. Ruto himself said he doesn't fear Uhuru.
Yeah.
Kidik himself said he doesn't fear Uhuru. Kimani Ichung'wah, a catastrophic character as a majority leader, said he doesn't fear Uhuru. And I agree. Why would you fear anybody but God? Almighty, omnipotent, omnipresent, almighty creator.
Omniscient.
Of heaven and earth, of all beings. But fear doesn't mean to God is supplication and worship. To a human being, if you fear even your parent, you should respect, but don't fear. Then the question that, and I'm here to defend Medo, I know without apology.
Yeah.
Medo asked specific questions about roads, and he mentioned even it.
Yeah.
So when Ruto rose, he could not answer to those, you know? So I think we need more Sifunas, we need more Medos, we need the union between UDA and ODM to collapse like yesterday, and we are praying for the cracks to widen so that the coalition of united alternative government that we are seeking to promote and that we are crafting can get the momentum of the 2002 where people who are moderate and who are dissatisfied in Moi's Kanu came to the Rainbow Coalition, and eventually the country got opportunity to terminate a regime.
So as we talk about the future,
real quick, as a response in 30 seconds.
we have these young people who have they are waking up.
Yes.
They are rising up. We are seeing them holding governments accountable.
Yes.
They are asking the relevant questions. And in your heydays, many years then, as a student leader, you are touted as one of those very vocal, youth leaders at that point in time. And you have given us your story around how you even rose to be a member of parliament. You served in the executive as an assistant minister, etc. What would be your one word to the youth that, of course, they are saying they are tribeless, they fear nothing other than hot uji and marriage, etc., but they have an interest in a progressive Kenya? What would be, if you are a young person today, then what is this one thing that you would share with your fellow?
I wrote
30 seconds. Yes.
I wrote 2 weeks ago on my Facebook and X space that even as we veterans seek to pursue elective positions, we should hold a large space where we mentor, where we facilitate and support programs of young people. Just the other day, that is on Saturday, Nyeri County had a special function for young people, the Gen Zs and early millennials, where they were launching a youth league. This, of course, was for the DCP party league. It is the first one to be done by youth in this country in that format. We need to facilitate them. We need to encourage them. We need to understand, because their language. And finally, if there is any government that will happen and be credible and endure the coming elections, we must 100% implement the Gen Z's accountability charter and ensure that even in the appointment of cabinet, 50% go to young people. Even nominations, we must deliberately go to young people beyond the slots given and ensure that in the appointment of cabinet, no county get 2 slots. I believe there is a chance and the opportunity for them, but for us, there is an obligation and duty, and we must proudly and boldly embrace that.
Kabando Wa Kabando is a politician and former Mukurweni MP. We have a responsibility to get out there and make decisions that will change the country. Asante sana. These conversations continue.
The latest news from around the world. 94.4 Spice FM. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.